Halloween and welcome to the Organized Cook. Tonight we're making a candy-appled pork chop using a Skittle reduction sauce. If you're a subscriber to the Organized Cook, then you are enjoying our spooktacular weekly meal plan this week. And if you're not a subscriber, you can log on now to organizedcook.com or tonyspilsbury.com because it's not too late to get this week's weekly meal plan. So what I've done is I have some apples here. I got one red, one green, a Granny Smith apple. And we're going to slice those up into thin slices. And then what I'll do, I have the lemon here so I can squeeze some lemon juice on top of the slices, and that way they won't turn brown while we're cooking our pork chop. So I'm going to slice up the green. I'm going to slice up the red. And the sauce that we'll be using for our candy apple pork chops, it's going to be I have some white wine. You don't have to use white wine. You can just use a chicken stock if you like. And so I have a chicken stock, an apple cider, just a couple of cups of apple cider, and white wine. But the wine is optional. Okay, now I'm just going to slice my lemon in half, and you can use lemon juice if you don't have a lemon, and just squeeze it over the apple slices, just so they can stay nice and fresh looking. In the meantime, we're going to heat a couple of tablespoons of butter and some oil over medium-high heat in a large saute pan. And as you can see from the recipe that you find online, what I've done is I've actually brined my pork chops ahead of time. And what the brining does is it makes sure it keeps it nice and juicy on the inside. So even though we're gonna just saute it in some butter and olive oil, it'll stay nice and juicy inside. If you wanna know more about brining, I did a whole blog post about the subject. Just go to tonyspilsbury.com and type in the search column brine, and you'll come up with my blog post to brine or not to brine. So my pork chops have been brining overnight in, oh goodness, in brown sugar with hot water. It's a bath of hot water and brown sugar and bourbon with some cinnamon sticks, cloves, and black pepper. So very carefully unwrap them. And then I'm going to remove them from the brine and place them on a paper towel lined sheet just so I can dry them off a little bit. So it's peppercorns and whole cloves, whole cinnamon sticks mixed with hot water, brown sugar, and bourbon. It's delicious. And again, the bourbon is optional, but the alcohol does cook off when you cook the pork chops. So I have the butter and the oil over medium-high heat. Our oil and butter is hot. I'm just going to brown these pork chops. And you can use the thick cut pork chops or you can use thin cut as well. After I brown these, I'll return them to our sauce to simmer for about 20 minutes, just to make sure they're cooked all the way through. Yeah, turn that down just a little bit. Okay. What I've done is I've taken a couple bags of Skittles candy, and I've separated out the red Skittles from the rest. And because when I was coming up with the recipe for the sauce, I figured I'd use an apple cider and a chicken broth, but I wasn't sure how I was going to make the sauce red. And then when I did some research on making actually candied apples, it turns out that you use red food coloring. So I didn't want to do that, but I thought maybe a reduction of red Skittles will do the trick, so we'll see how it turns out. Okay, and what we can do is season with a little salt and pepper. And we'll get some of our saltiness also from our chicken stock, our chicken broth that we're going to use. Now this is day 2 of our Spooktacular weekly meal plan. I start off the week with a white bean and turkey spinach chili because that is Halloween. And on Halloween, I like to make something really easy that I can keep in a slow cooker on warm, that people can just help themselves. I can throw out through a few items to garnish. And what we do is, what I do is I serve that with a little cornbread, some other quick items that people can snack on. And so if you want some easy entertaining ideas, some easy appetizers for Halloween, be sure to check out my website at tonyspilsbury.com for my Spooktacular punch and some spooky eyeball guacamole and some other fabulous recipes. So now that the pork chops are just starting to brown, I flip them once, and I'm going to season the other side now. A little bit of salt and pepper. And these pork chops, because they're so thick, they're going to take about probably 5-6 minutes each side to brown. Now our pork chops are nice and brown on both sides, so I'm transferring them to another paper towel lined plate. And then we're going to deglaze our skillet. I'm going to use some white wine to deglaze it, but you can use some chicken stock to deglaze as well. So just a little bit of white wine. Scrape up all the bits. And you can use a chicken broth, just a regular chicken broth from the store, or a chicken stock. And actually first I'm going to put in my apple cider. I used about a cup of apple cider. And then I'm using a condensed chicken stock. So I'll mix this chicken stock in with a couple of cups of water. About 1.5 cups of water. And my water. Okay, and we're going to let this simmer until it reduces by about half. That's going to take about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm going to bring it to a boil. Now that our sauce has come to a boil, I'm going to just turn it down a tiny bit and let it simmer. I'm going to put the pork chops back in the sauce. Now I made a total of about 6 pork chops. I only need 4 or 5 for tonight. So what I did with the extra 2, and I intentionally made some extra, is I stored them in the refrigerator because in a couple of nights we are going to have a cilantro, green chili, pork penny pasta. And so I'll already have my pork chops cooked by then. All I have to do is slice them and mix them in with some green chilies and some cilantro and some con queso cheese. It's beautiful. So I'm going to let the pork chops now simmer in here for about 10 minutes. Okay, now our pork chops have been simmering for about 10 minutes, so they're nice and tender and cooked all the way through. So I'm going to transfer them one last time. Actually, I'm going to transfer them directly to our serving platter. Because all we have left to do now is to caramelize our apples in our reduction sauce made from Red Skittles. So fun. Okay. Those look fabulous. Okay, so now that our sauce has come back to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and put our Red Skittles in here. And I'm going to let them reduce, so they're going to completely dissolve in our sauce. And that's what's going to turn our sauce from that dark golden brownish color into more of that red candy apple color. And also I wanted to note that this week's, our Spooktacular weekly meal plan is actually our first meal plan that is gluten-free or for gluten intolerance. Okay, now our sauce has completely dissolved the Red Skittles, and it's that nice dark reddish color. It's still, even though it's reduced a little bit, it's still a little bit thin, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a tablespoon of cornstarch and dissolve it in water. I'm gonna add the cornstarch water to our sauce. And actually, this is gonna make it a little bit, bring out that red color a little bit more. Okay, and we're gonna bring that to a boil. Okay, now our sauce has come to a boil. Cornstarch is all dissolved in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and transfer our apple slices into the sauce. And these only need to cook for a few minutes so they become somewhat caramelized in the sauce. We're gonna let them simmer in here. Remember, you can find this recipe in our Spooktacular weekly meal plan, and that you can find through organizedcook.com, or you can go directly to tonyspilsbury.com. Okay, now our apples are completely cooked in our sauce. They're slightly caramelized. The sauce is nice and thick. So we're just going to spoon the apples and the sauce over the pork chops. This is going to be delicious. I already tasted the sauce. And then the remainder of the sauce, the remaining sauce, we're going to go ahead and place, and if you have a ladle, a gravy boat of some type. I just found this cute little cauldron dish today at Cost Plus World Market, so I'm going to go ahead and use this with a spoon for people to spoon more sauce over their pork chops. So there you have it, candy appled pork chops from the Organized Cook. And to find this weekly meal plan and more recipes for Halloween, including our dinner and a pumpkin, be sure to check out tonyspilsbury.com. Happy Halloween, everyone.
I said,